The name Tahira means pure one, as designated by Baha'u'llah. But just who was this heroine that would emblazon the trail of religious history, that akin to a very bugle call would rip off her veil that concealed her endearing face, and of relegating that symbol of oppression to the wasteland of obscurity? Her veil was ascribed as the very badge of inferiority, but because of her courageousness, she would eventually herald the very emancipation of women. This is her legacy, but hers is a story within a story. This was in the 19th century Persia. Women were denied choice to fashion their own lives, that they were restricted from schooling and kept illiterate. And when it came time for marriage, they were prevented from choosing their own spouse. Such was the grueling fate of women. In a word, it meant living in an enveloped and male-dominated society, and where so many had to bear the brunt of prejudice and discrimination. But this was also at a time when, in 1844, emerged the Bab and a new religion that would later ushering in the Baha'i faith, and this would significantly impel her mission. Thus, she persevered to uphold the rights of women. She was a fighter, a crusader, peeling away layers of obstructions in quest of the truth, and of upholding unwavering purity of character that had blossomed profusely until ending in tragedy when she was only 35. Abdu'l-Baha said of her that in eloquence she was the calamity of the world, a brand afire with the love of God, and a lamp aglow with the bounty of God. The Guardian also writes that despite the restrictions of the day, the fame of this immortal woman that was noised abroad and traveling with remarkable swiftness as far as the capitals of Western Europe had aroused the enthusiastic admiration of so many. Indeed, when it was said by a noted playwright, whom Sarah Bernhardt had specifically requested to write a dramatized version of her life. In sum, so worshipped was she, the Guardian cites a tribute made by the mother of one of the presidents of Austria when she said, "I shall try to do for the women of Austria what Tahira gave her life to do for the women of Persia, in which the greatest ideal of womanhood has been Tahira." It would all begin early childhood as the daughter of prominent Islamic scholar who recognized that she was an extraordinary, exceptional, and gifted child. So he excluded her from the empty vacuum of education afforded women back then and arranged special training of various branches of knowledge and the arts, and consequently she achieved such a remarkable ability in literary pursuits that her father would often express his regret, wishing that she was a boy and would have succeeded him. Soon she would meet a learned scholar, Said Kazim, that helped her through complex theological problems in which she had expressed a profound interest. And such was the great extent of her learning that he conferred on her name Solace of the Eyes. But one day this association ended abruptly with his unexpected passing. Yet his associates aided her. By now she was already familiar with the Bob's teachings, and soon she became an avid follower without even meeting the Bob, and in being designated one of his letters of the living. So great was her allegiance to this newfound faith that she translated into Arabic and Persian the Bob's book called The Best of Stories that he wrote after he declared his mission. Indeed, she even added lyrics and odes to celebrate it and to passionately impart his teachings that attracted scores of people. This, of course, did not bode well with the authorities that a woman was summoning the people, not to mention their outrage over a new religion to which was drawing scores of adherents. And they wasted no time to arrest her with attempts to confine her in her travels, yet only increased her popularity even more in being a voice for the rights and freedoms of women. The Guardian writes of her this way: through her eloquent pleadings, her fearless denunciations, her dissertations, poems, and translations, her commentaries and correspondence, she persisted in firing the imagination and in enlisting the allegiance of Arabs and Persians alike to the new revelation, in condemning the perversity of her generation and in advocating a revolutionary transformation in the habits and manners of her people. Yet uppermost was the driving vengeances wrought upon her by backward governance that spurred her achievements to a resounding climax. Indeed, the penultimate of her story that would become the unblemished chapter of valor and heroism in the annals of history. It would begin in a conference that was being planned for a formal inauguration of the Bob's cause, and its setting was a tiny hamlet called Badasht on the border of Mazandaran. In attendance was she as the sole woman, and followers of the Bab numbering more than 80. Yet not long after the proceedings would begin was an extraordinary and unprecedented thing about to happen. Indeed, to the dismay, consternation, and even anger of some in attendance, was when Tahira entered without wearing her veil, that symbol of repression, exclaiming, "The trumpet is sounding. The universal advent is now proclaimed," and asserting what would put to fight the chiefs and nobles of the earth. Thus, this was her summit, the pinnacle of her achievements, that was her monumental announcement for the emancipation of women. Soon calmness was restored following her impassioned words, and Baha'u'llah recited the Surah of the Resurrection, intoning that mankind was about to pass into a new cosmic cycle for which a new set of laws and customs would be indispensable. And this conference opened its door. It had achieved its purpose. In describing its structure, The Guardian writes, "No pomp, no pageantry marks so great a turning point in the world's religious history, nor was its modest setting commensurate with such a sudden, startling, complete emancipation from the dark and embattled forces of fanaticism, of priestcraft, of religious orthodoxy, and of superstition." That Tahira had a formidable role in the conference is that she would leave it far greater strengthened and determined as never before. And this escalated in propagating the faith of the Bab in her customary eloquent deliverance. But soon a grave penance was put upon her by the deputies of the Grand Vizier, that in efforts to finally stop her, after many raging interrogations, had finally precipitated with the sentence of her death. Thus ended the life of this great Babi heroine, writes The Guardian, the first woman suffrage martyr who, at her death, turning to the one in whose custody she had been placed in carrying out the sentence, had boldly declared, "You can kill me as soon as you like, but you cannot stop the emancipation of women." So in conclusion, two stories had at last conjoined, with Tahira's own passion in fighting for the rights of women, and of her tireless promulgation of the cause of the Bab that would turn the tide of history.